For nearly 2,000 years, Christians have proclaimed Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. Islam rejects all three of these core doctrines and offers a different account of who Jesus was and what happened at the cross and afterwards. But the Islamic account comes at a terrible price. In order to reject Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity, Islam has to portray God as a horrible deceiver and Jesus as the most stupendous failure in the history of the prophets. So, while Muslims claim that Allah is the truth and that Jesus is to be revered as one of Allah's mightiest prophets, these claims are hollow because a closer examination shows what Islam really teaches about God and Jesus. To understand the theological incoherence that emerges from Muhammad's teachings about Jesus, we're going to look at 10 facts. And when I say 10 facts, I mean 10 facts that even Muslims have to grant. They're either facts about what Islam teaches or historical facts that Muslims can't deny. Based on these 10 facts, we're then going to ask 10 questions. And, as we'll see, the Islamic answers to these questions will leave us wondering how Muslims can possibly expect us to take their theology seriously. Fact number 1. According to the Quran, Jesus was a prophet of Islam. No Muslim is going to deny this since it comes directly from the Quran, Surah 42, verse 13. The same religion has he established for you as that which he enjoined on Noah, that which we have sent by inspiration to you, O Muhammad, and that which we enjoined on Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, namely, that you should remain steadfast in religion and make no divisions therein. So, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad were all prophets of Allah, and they all preached the same religion. According to the Quran, Surah 19, verses 23 to 33, Jesus began preaching Islam when he was still a baby. Fact number 2. According to the Quran, a number of Jesus' listeners believed his message and became Muslims. Jesus didn't just preach Islam, he had a successful ministry and won converts. Surah 3, verse 52. When Jesus found unbelief on their, i.e. the Jews' part, he said, "Who will be my helpers in the cause of Allah?" The disciples said, "We are Allah's helpers. We believe in Allah, so bear witness that we are Muslims." Surah 5, verse 111. And behold, when I inspired the disciples of Jesus to believe in me and my messenger, they said, "We believe, so bear witness that we are Muslims." Jesus had Muslim followers in the 1st century. Fact number 3. In the Quran, Allah promises Jesus that his followers will be superior to unbelievers until the day of resurrection. When Allah informs Jesus that he's about to be taken to heaven, he also tells him not to worry about his followers because Allah himself is going to protect them. Surah 3, verse 55. Behold, Allah said, "O Jesus, I will take you and raise you to myself and clear you of the falsehoods of those who disbelieve. I will make those who follow you superior to those who disbelieve until the day of resurrection. Then shall you all return to me, and I will judge between you concerning the matters in which you differ." Allah is going to protect Jesus' followers and make them superior to the unbelievers until the day of resurrection. That is a long time. Since the day of resurrection hasn't gotten here yet, Jesus' followers are still under Allah's protection. We have been all along. Fact number 4. If there were any 1st century Jews who converted to Islam after hearing Jesus preach, they didn't last very long. The claim that Jesus' followers were Muslims raises an obvious question. Why have we never heard of any 1st century Muslim followers of Jesus? We have a ton of historical information about Jesus' 1st century followers, but we have no evidence at all of any Muslims. We have both Christian and non-Christian sources that tell us what Jesus' followers believed, yet none of these sources suggest that Jesus' followers believed anything remotely resembling Islam. We know about followers of Jesus who worshipped him and proclaimed his death for sins and his resurrection from the dead, so they're clearly not Muslims. What happened to the Muslims? The most obvious conclusion to draw here is that the Quran is wrong when it says that Jesus' followers were Muslims. But we're going to be as generous as possible to our Muslim friends and simply say that, assuming Jesus had Muslim followers, they didn't last very long. They didn't last long enough to leave any sort of record. Clearly, if Jesus' Muslim followers had been around for several centuries, we would have some sort of evidence that they at least existed. But we don't. So even Muslims have to acknowledge that if Jesus had Muslim followers, they disappeared quickly and didn't leave much of a historical footprint. Fact number 5. According to the Quran, Allah helped Jesus' followers gain the upper hand over the Jews who rejected Jesus. We've already seen that Allah promised to make Jesus' followers superior until the day of resurrection. In Surah 61, verse 14 of the Quran, Allah goes on to say that He aided Jesus' followers until they became uppermost over their enemies. The verse reads, "O you who believe, be helpers in the cause of Allah, as Jesus, son of Mary, said to his disciples, 'Who are my helpers in the cause of Allah?' The disciples said, 'We are helpers in the cause of Allah.' So a party of the children of Israel believed, and another party disbelieved. Then we aided those who believed against their enemy, and they became uppermost." Now, when did Jesus' followers become uppermost over the Jews who rejected Jesus? The Quran says that Allah helped them until they became uppermost, so it must have happened according to Islam. But in the first century, Jesus' followers were a persecuted minority under constant threat, so Allah helped them sometime later and turned the tide. When was that? Fact number 6. The only followers of Jesus who ever became more powerful than the Jews were Christians who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. We'll recall that, assuming Jesus had Muslim followers, they didn't last very long. They never became uppermost over anyone. We have absolutely no evidence that they even existed. But some followers of Jesus did become uppermost. The problem for Muslims is that we know what these followers believed, and it wasn't Islam. Interestingly, Muslim commentators admit that the Quran is referring to the Christians who took over the Roman Empire. In his commentary on Surah 61, verse 14 of the Quran, Yusuf Ali says this, "A portion of the children of Israel, the one that really cared for the truth, believed in Jesus and followed his guidance, but the greater portion of them were hard-hearted and remained in their beaten track of formalism and false racial pride. The majority seemed at first to have the upper hand when they thought they had crucified Jesus and killed his message, but they were soon brought to their senses. Jerusalem was destroyed by Titus in AD 70, and the Jews have been scattered ever since. The wandering Jew has become a byword in many literatures. On the other hand, those who followed Jesus permeated the Roman Empire, brought many new races within their circle, and through the Roman Empire, Christianity became the predominant religion of the world until the advent of Islam." Christians became uppermost when they took over the Roman Empire. But we know exactly what these Christians believed. They believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. So these were the followers of Jesus Allah aided until they became uppermost. Fact number 7. The Quran states that the Injil, the Gospel, was given as a guidance for mankind. We've seen that Allah sent various prophets into the world, Noah, Abraham, and so on. But Allah didn't just send prophets, He also inspired books. For instance, the Quran affirms the inspiration of the Torah, the Gospel, and the Quran in Surah 3, verses 3 to 4. He, Allah, has revealed to you the book with truth, verifying that which is before it, and He revealed the Torah and the Gospel aforetime, a guidance for mankind, and He revealed the criterion. The criterion is usually interpreted to mean the Quran. So Allah gave the Gospel as a guidance for mankind. Allah's goal was to guide mankind with the Gospel. Was Allah successful, or did human beings stop Him from achieving His goal? Let's find out. Fact number 8. According to the Quran, Christians still possessed the Gospel during Muhammad's time. Contrary to Muslims in our time who claim that the Gospel has been corrupted, the Quran asserts that no one can change Allah's words. Surah 18, verse 27, "And recite what has been revealed to you of the book of your Lord. There is none who can alter His words, and you shall not find any refuge besides Him." Not surprisingly, since the Quran insists that the gospel is the word of Allah and that no one can change Allah's words, it also declares that 7th century Christians were still reading the Torah and the gospel. In Surah 7, verse 157, Allah declares, "Those who follow the messenger, the unlettered prophet, whom they find written down with them in the Torah and the gospel, it is they who will prosper." How can we find Muhammad written down with us in the gospel if we don't have the gospel? Is the Quran saying that there are parts about Muhammad that are reliable even though other parts have been corrupted? How would we know that the parts about Muhammad weren't among the corrupted parts? What's the point of appealing to a book to validate your prophet if you're simultaneously claiming that the book you're appealing to has been corrupted? But the Quran doesn't just say that Christians were still reading the gospel in the time of Muhammad. It also commands Christians to judge by the gospel. Surah 5, verse 47. "Let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein. Whoever fails to judge by what Allah has revealed, they are the transgressors." If the gospel has been corrupted, Christians have nowhere else to turn, because in Surah 5, verse 68, Allah tells Muhammad to say, "O people of the book, you have no ground to stand upon unless you stand fast by the Torah, the gospel, and all the revelation that has come to you from your Lord." So if Allah revealed the gospel, and no one can change Allah's words, and Christians were reading the gospel during the time of Muhammad, and Allah commands Christians to judge by the gospel and says that we have no ground to stand upon if we don't stand upon the gospel, it's clear that according to the Quran, Christians still had the gospel during the time of Muhammad. This means that the gospel had been accurately and reliably transmitted from the 1st century all the way down to the 7th century. Fact number 9. If there was a 1st century gospel fundamentally different from the New Testament gospels, it was corrupted immediately or lost entirely. The 4 gospels from the 2nd century onward were treated as a unit called the fourfold gospel, or simply the gospel. But this fourfold gospel affirms Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity as fundamental doctrines. Since the Quran tells us that Allah inspired the gospel, and we know that the gospel we have contradicts Islam, Muslims are forced to claim that the gospel has been corrupted. But we have thousands of manuscripts of the gospel, and none of them agrees with Islam. So what happened to the gospel that Allah inspired? Here again, the most obvious conclusion to draw is that the Quran is simply wrong when it claims that there was once an Islamic gospel. But once again, we're going to be as generous as possible to our Muslim friends, and we'll only say that if there was an Islamic gospel, it was corrupted very early on or lost completely. We have no record of its existence, so it couldn't have made a significant impact. Hence, even Muslims who believe in an Islamic gospel have to grant this point. Fact number 10. According to Islam, Allah tricked the Jews into believing that they had crucified Jesus. We know historically that Jesus' death by crucifixion was common knowledge among ancient authorities, and that Jesus' earliest followers, including Peter, James, and John, came to believe that Jesus had died on the cross for their sins and that he had risen from the dead. All 4 New Testament Gospels confirm the early Christian belief in Jesus' death and resurrection, as does the book of Acts. Paul's letters also repeatedly proclaim Jesus' death and resurrection. An ancient Christian creed recorded in 1 Corinthians 15 has been dated to within a few years of Jesus' life and therefore provides extremely early testimony about Christian beliefs during the time of the apostles. The creed tells us that Jesus died, was buried, and rose from the dead. We also have early Christian writings from outside the New Testament that report the beliefs of Jesus' followers. For instance, Clement of Rome, who was ordained as Bishop of Rome by the Apostle Peter, writes about the apostles' belief in Jesus' resurrection. Polycarp, who was ordained by the Apostle John, mentions Jesus' resurrection numerous times. There are even several non-Christian sources that report crucial information about Jesus and the apostles. According to both the Jewish historian Josephus and the Roman historian Tacitus, Jesus was crucified during the reign of Pontius Pilate. But Islam asserts that Jesus never died and that he therefore didn't rise from the dead. If Islam is correct, why did so many people, Christian and non-Christian, think that Jesus died by crucifixion? Well, according to the Quran, Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus died by crucifixion. As we read in Surah 4, verses 157 to 158, they, the Jews, said, "We killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. But they killed him not, nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them. And those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow. For of a surety they killed him not. Nay, Allah raised him up to himself, and Allah is exalted in power, wise. They killed him not, nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them." What does the Quran mean when it says that it was made to appear to them that they had killed and crucified Jesus? There are several stories about what happened to Jesus in the Muslim sources, but they're variations on what's called substitution theory. Substitution theory is the theory that Jesus wasn't crucified because Allah took someone else and disguised him to make him look like Jesus. And this other person was then crucified in Jesus' place as his substitute. We have different Muslim stories about the identity of this other person, but the most popular Muslim view today is that it was Judas. Jesus wasn't crucified. Allah disguised Judas and made him look like Jesus. Then Judas was crucified, but everyone thought that it was Jesus because Allah made it appear to them that Jesus was crucified. If the Muslim view is correct, where did Christians get the idea that Jesus died on the cross? We didn't get this idea from the Apostle Paul or from the Council of Nicaea. We got the idea from Allah, who did such an amazing job tricking everyone that nearly 20 centuries of Christians and non-Christians have been thoroughly convinced that Jesus died by crucifixion. And don't forget that belief in Jesus' death is foundational to Christianity. There's no Christianity without belief in Jesus' death. So without Allah tricking people into believing that Jesus died by crucifixion, there would be no Christianity. Allah, through trickery and deception, helped start Christianity. So these are our 10 facts that our Muslim friends can't deny. 1, according to the Quran, Jesus was a prophet of Islam. 2, according to the Quran, a number of Jesus' listeners believed his message and became Muslims. 3, in the Quran, Allah promises Jesus that his followers will be superior to unbelievers until the day of resurrection. 4, if there were any first century Jews who converted to Islam after hearing Jesus preach, they didn't last very long. 5, according to the Quran, Allah helped Jesus' followers gain the upper hand over the Jews who rejected Jesus. 6, the only followers of Jesus who ever became more powerful than the Jews were Christians who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. 7, the Quran states that the Injil, the Gospel, was given as a guidance for mankind. 8, according to the Quran, Christians still possessed the Gospel during Muhammad's time. 9, if there was a first century Gospel fundamentally different from the New Testament Gospels, it was corrupted immediately or lost entirely. 10, according to Islam, Allah tricked the Jews into believing that they had crucified Jesus. Now that we've established these 10 facts, we have 10 questions for our Muslim friends. Question number 1. Assuming that the Muslim view is correct, what happened to Jesus' Muslim followers? The Quran tells us that Jesus' followers were Muslims, but we have no record of any Muslim followers of Jesus, so they must have disappeared rather quickly. What happened to them? Since we know about early Christians who believed in Jesus' death and resurrection, and since Allah led people to believe in Jesus' death through the power of illusion, the only way to reconcile the Islamic claim with history is to conclude that Jesus' Muslim followers were led astray by Allah. That is, they came to believe that Jesus died by crucifixion, and since many people were convinced that Jesus had appeared to them alive again, these Muslim followers also must have come to believe that he rose from the dead. In other words, Islam teaches that Jesus' followers were Muslims, but all the followers of Jesus we know about in the first century believed in his death and resurrection. How did we get from Muslims to Christians? Well, they needed belief in Jesus' death by crucifixion, and that belief was supplied by Allah when he disguised someone to make him look like Jesus. So Allah led people away from the truth about Jesus. Question number 2. Why would Allah lead Jesus' followers astray and destroy everything Jesus had worked so hard to accomplish? According to Islam, Jesus was born of a virgin. He lived the most miraculous life in history, and Allah raised him up to heaven alive. Allah clearly had big plans for Jesus, and Jesus was successful. People converted to Islam when he preached. But then Jesus' followers became convinced that he died on the cross and rose from the dead. Where did they get that idea? They got it from Allah, who tricked and deceived them. Why would Allah do that? Why would Allah send Jesus with so many miracles only to destroy everything Jesus had worked so hard to accomplish by starting Christianity? Question number 3. Why did Allah tell Jesus that his followers would be superior until the day of resurrection? Remember that in Surah 3, verse 55, Allah promised Jesus that he would make his followers superior to unbelievers until the day of resurrection. But those same followers became Christians and dedicated their lives to preaching that Jesus died on the cross for our sins and rose from the dead. Why didn't Allah tell Jesus, "Sorry, but after I take you safely to heaven, I'm going to trick your followers into believing that you died, and I'm going to start the world's largest false religion in the process"? Was Allah lying to Jesus, in which case he's immoral and lies to his prophets? Or did Allah just not know what was going to happen, in which case he's ignorant? Which one is he, immoral or ignorant? He has to be one or the other if he promised Jesus that he would make his followers superior until the day of resurrection, but instead tricked them into inventing a false religion. Question number 4. If the gospel was given as a guidance to mankind, why didn't Allah preserve his message rather than help start a heresy? Allah says in the Quran that he gave the gospel as a guidance to mankind, but we have no record anywhere of any Islamic gospel. So whom, we have to ask, did this book ever guide? If Allah wanted to give people a book but was prevented from reaching his goal, it seems that someone must have overpowered Allah. Interestingly, notice that the gospel we have today tells us that Jesus died by crucifixion. According to Muslims, that's a corruption. But where did that corruption come from? It came from Allah when he tricked people into believing that Jesus died by crucifixion. So at least part of Allah's book, which he delivered as a guidance for mankind, was corrupted by Allah himself. Why would Allah corrupt his own book and start a false religion instead of just protecting the book that he had sent as a guidance? Question number 5. If the Islamic gospel was corrupted so quickly that we have no evidence that it ever existed, why did Allah say that it was still available during Muhammad's time? Allah gave the gospel as a guidance. Then it was corrupted by Allah and others. We know what the gospel said in the first century, and it affirms Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. So it must have been corrupted in the first century. But if the gospel was corrupted in the first century, why does Allah tell Muhammad in the 7th century that no one can change his words, that Christians still had the gospel, that Christians have to judge by the gospel, and that Christians have no ground to stand upon if they do not stand fast by the gospel? Did Allah forget that he and others had corrupted the gospel centuries earlier, in which case his memory was failing? Or did Allah remember that he and others had corrupted the gospel, but he was just lying to Muhammad about no one being able to change his words and Christians still reading and judging by the gospel, in which case he was once again deceiving his own prophets, lying to Muhammad about preserving the gospel like he lied to Jesus about protecting his followers until the day of resurrection? Question number 6. If Allah is powerless to stop people from corrupting his message, can we even trust the Quran? Allah repeatedly says in the Quran that no one can change his words, and Allah gave the gospel as a guidance for mankind. But then he corrupted part of it, so he can obviously change his own words. And other people corrupted other parts, which means that people can corrupt his words. Now, if Allah gave the gospel as a guidance, but just couldn't protect it, he must not be as powerful as he thinks. And if Allah couldn't protect the gospel, which he gave as a guidance for mankind, how could he protect the Quran, which he also gave as a guidance for mankind? Did Allah suddenly gain new abilities when Muhammad came along? In the first century, he couldn't protect his words, not from himself and not from others. But in the 7th century, he could suddenly protect his words? Unless our Muslim friends want us to believe that Allah changed significantly somewhere between the 1st and the 7th century, the God who was protecting the Quran was the same God who could never protect his other revelations. Maybe this is why Islam's most trusted sources talk about the Quran being changed so many times, entire chapters coming up missing, large passages coming up missing, verses being eaten by a goat. This all makes sense if Allah just can't protect his words. But if Allah can't protect his words, why does he say over and over again that no one can change his words? Again, is he ignorant? Does he just not realize that his words have been changed over and over again? Or does he know that people are changing his words, but he keeps lying about it to protect himself from embarrassment? Question number 7. Once the Christian heresy had started, why did Allah help the Christians rise to power? So there were 1st century Muslims, and then there were Christians who believed in Jesus' death, resurrection, and deity. Which followers of Jesus became uppermost? Well, the 1st century Muslims completely disappeared from history. The followers of Jesus who became uppermost were the ones who believed in his death, resurrection, and deity. But Allah, in Surah 61, verse 14, says that he aided the followers of Jesus until they became uppermost. Did he pick the wrong ones, in which case he's ignorant? Or did he deliberately help the heretical followers of Jesus who were preaching a false religion? Or did he really want to help the Muslim followers of Jesus, but his ability to help people didn't kick in until it was too late and Jesus' message had been corrupted by Allah? In the 1st century, Christians were a small, persecuted group in the Roman Empire, but Christianity eventually became the largest religion in history. How did it go from being a tiny, persecuted religion to being the largest religion in history? According to the Quran, who helped Christians become uppermost? Allah did. Allah helped Christians rise to power. But Christianity is false, according to Islam. So Allah not only helped start a false religion by tricking people into believing that Jesus died on the cross, he also helped it become the most popular religion in history. Is it just me, or does Allah sound hopelessly confused at best, or maliciously deceptive at worst? Question number 8. If Allah deceives people who follow his prophets, how do Muslims know that he isn't deceiving them? According to Islam, Allah tricked people into believing that Jesus died by crucifixion. The obvious question that arises is, why would he do a thing like that? He certainly didn't do it to protect Jesus. Jesus was taken safely to heaven. So why would Allah want people to believe that Jesus died on the cross when Jesus never died on the cross? Why would he want people to believe something that's false? Why would he want to give Jesus' enemies the satisfaction of seeing him killed? Why not raise Jesus up without deceiving anyone? There seems to be no reason at all for Allah to deceive these people, especially since the deception misled Jesus' followers, corrupted the gospel, and led to the formation of Christianity, the largest false religion in history. So if there's just no reason for Allah to trick people here, and if he even ended up tricking people who had converted to Islam, we have to ask, how do our Muslim friends know that he isn't tricking them? Allah, according to the Quran, tricks and deceives people, even people who follow his prophets, for no reason whatsoever. I have no idea how our Muslim friends sleep at night when they believe in a God who starts false religions, helps spread those false religions, and deceives people who are trying desperately to follow him. By the way, I'm not the only one to realize this. Abu Bakr, Muhammad's closest companion and the first of the rightly guided caliphs, said that if he had one foot in paradise, he would still fear Allah's deception. Now there's a Muslim who understood the implications of believing in an omnipotent deceiver. Question number 9. Since Allah deceived people about Jesus, and since he couldn't protect the rest of Jesus' message, what did Jesus ultimately accomplish? Muslims claim that Jesus was one of Allah's mightiest prophets, but if we take a closer look, we can see that if Islam is true, Jesus was the greatest failure in the history of the prophets. Since he started preaching Islam at birth, he had more than 30 years to convince people to believe in Allah. But after he was taken away, the children of Israel were divided into two broad camps. Those who believed his message became Christians. all of whom were guilty of the worst sin imaginable, shirk, while those who rejected his message were guilty of rejecting one of Allah's mightiest messengers. So whether people believed in Jesus or rejected him, they would all ultimately be condemned and cast into the hellfire. Jesus didn't manage to win a single lasting convert to Islam. His Muslim followers were led astray by Allah. His message was corrupted by Allah. So according to Islam, Jesus accomplished absolutely nothing of any lasting significance. And Muslims claim to respect Jesus. Question number 10. How does all of this compare with the Christian view? Muslims claim to have a superior view of God, but they believe in a deity who deceives people for no reason, starts false religions, overthrows the work of his prophets, and is powerless to preserve his message, even though he calls himself the truth, promises to protect those who follow his prophets, and boasts that no one can change his words. Muslims claim to have a superior view of Jesus, but they believe that he accomplished nothing of any lasting significance and that he was utterly incompetent at choosing disciples. Not one of Jesus' disciples managed to protect his message from corruption, although we can't really blame them since Allah was the one who tricked them into corrupting the message that he had given as a guidance to mankind. If Islam is true, God is ignorant and deceptive, Jesus was irrelevant and incompetent, and Jesus' followers were weak-willed and unreliable. Islam is one massive insult to God, to Jesus, and to Jesus' followers. As with so many of Islam's claims, we find superficial reverence but deep blasphemy. On the surface, Islam looks like it promotes reverence for God and respect for Jesus. But as soon as we dig a little deeper, we find blasphemous, incoherent nonsense. This is exactly what we should expect from a false religion. Reverence on the surface, blasphemy below the surface. Superficial reverence, deep blasphemy. Christianity, by contrast, honors God. The God of the Bible is perfect in his attributes. According to Christianity, God's justice is perfect, so all sin must be punished. If God let some sin slide, he wouldn't be perfect in his justice. But God's love and mercy are also perfect, which means that he's vastly more loving than we are. So much so that he's willing to take the punishment that we deserve upon himself. God loves sinners so much that he entered into creation in order to pay the price for our sins. As Jesus of Nazareth, he fulfilled his mission perfectly and suffered for our sake so that we could stand before God with the righteousness of Christ. He taught the good news, the gospel, to his followers. He appeared to them as their risen Lord, and he sent them the Holy Spirit to fill and empower them. These followers endured torture and death to preach the gospel to people who were lost and to make sure that the gospel would reach us. So God was completely victorious. Jesus was completely victorious. And Jesus' followers, by God's grace, were completely victorious. Christianity doesn't promote superficial reverence. It promotes deep reverence. Jesus warned his followers that false prophets would come. He also commanded us not to believe them. One of the ways we can spot false prophets is by carefully discerning when their teachings insult and demean God and diminish God's perfect attributes. God is truth, and God is love. Islam, when carefully examined, would have us believe otherwise.